So let's take there's a lot of hands, and go ahead first.
I have two very short questions. One is about chronology to Sarah and Nicolau. When do you think that the Kazakh famine ended by and large? Of course, we know that by 1934 there was still, people were still coming back, there was still problems, but the real tragedy, what was by when it was over? We know that in Ukraine, for example, of course, you had the famine also in 34, it's no famine, but by, let's say, July 33, the real core of the tragedy was done. So what was the end of the line in Kazakhstan? And the other is for us, that I was very intrigued, and I think he has a good point, and I think we don't know, because in Ukraine too was the case. They had to live with the people that forced the war on them for many decades. So I'm sure this informed a lot, but we will never know. We could not know. This is the tragedy of all these regimes in which let's say the people who are committing what is happening or are, supervising remain in power, and the victims remain subordinate. So this really makes a big difference. So the question here is again about when do you think that this ended? That is the generation of the Great Famine in China. That was, let's say, 20 years old during the Great Leap Forward. When it disappeared, demographically speaking, what was, by the 1990s, the past 10 years, what was the life expectancy in China? I have no idea. When would you say the demographic change took over? Because in Italy, for example, we now know that what happened in the 50s, basically, we have very little possibility of witnessing. We have very old people, and in Italy, life expectancy is very, very long. It's 82, 83. I'm asking this, what you described, and it's very believable that took place during the 90s, for example. Is still the case, or is this changing? Or are we facing a watershed or not?
Just go on, take one more.
So the direct is the latest.
I guess my question is a bit of a follow-up to Andreas' question. It's for Rolf Thaxter. I'm interested in the transmission of popular memory. I mean, he talked in terms of life expectancy. I'm curious about sort of the passing along of memory, the discussion of what happened. Do the young people in the village also ostracize? Did they also ostracize this vice chair? Was the story told to them? Do you have any sense under what circumstances people would talk about the famine? Was it ritualized? Was it on holidays? Was it in family groups? How did people know? And how did people talk about it?
Thank you. So I noticed that at least a dozen people still have questions, and so I'll get back to you very quickly. So I urge our panelists to respond to this question very sort of give short answer and try to make it as efficient as possible. So the first question is about how did it end Kazakh Famines in China, and the second question is about memory. So go ahead.
About the when the famine in Kazakhstan ended, I think it's difficult to tell in the sense that, of course, we have a lot of documents about famine refugees, Kazakh famine refugees being funneled back into Kazakhstan in 1934 that were dying in large numbers. But I would say that the harvest of 1933 would be, in my opinion, but it's a difficult question. I think that the famine refugees, of course, famine refugees came back and were settled, work into factories and collective farms, and I think the end of this is more or less 1938. So I found documents about the fact that until 1938 there was this administrative body that supervised the coming back of the refugees, and then after 1938 it was more or less over. But as the famine itself, after 1/3 of the Kazakh population already died, so there were much less people to feed. I would say the hardest time to 33.
Thank you for the question. I'm not sure that I can give you a very good answer at this point. I'm still revising my dissertation into a book now, and I have to say I actually haven't gotten yet to the chapter that deals with the end of the famine and with my revisions. So more I would just second what Nicolo has said, that in its contours, of course, the Kazakh famine took a different trajectory. There were different peaks than in Ukraine, and one of the features, of course, is maybe hunger is over, but the process of bringing people back or of people setting up their new lives where they have fled continues for many, many years after that.
So quickly, I'm going to take the questions in reverse order, if you don't mind, so back to you first. I'm not attempting to be cute here when I say this. One of the things I learned from doing research in rural China many years is that there are some things that people in a village know. Everybody knows it, so there's no reason to talk about it. There's no reason to talk about it. They don't have to talk about it to keep reminding themselves of it. But of course, you're right, that happens. And I don't know, is it rituals, holidays, family settings? I don't know. I do know this. Sometimes when we interview people, we found that they hadn't talked about it for a long, long time. Okay. So how did they know? I don't know the answer to your question fully. I'm sure Joshua and maybe Kimberly know more about this than I do. But it's a really good question. Then the second question is, if I understand it, you want to know when demographic change starts to take over to the point where memory of it starts to fade, right? Yeah, and that's related to his question, and intergenerational transmission, right? And I must tell you, I think that's an exceedingly difficult question. I've interviewed people who, it seems to me the short answer to your question is, if we're talking 35 to 40-year-old generation, it's already started to fade. And one of the interesting things is some of the people we've interviewed, but these are people who are older, but for those of us who are older, are actually getting younger. They are very frustrated because they will try to tell this younger, now better off generation about the famine. And one of the things that I found was the parents and grandparents, when I tell the children or the grandchildren about it, will immediately get very frustrated and say to us in responses, it's almost impossible to talk to them because either A, they don't believe that something this horrible could have happened to us, or that was A. B, they will immediately say to us, well, why didn't you resist them? And then pin it on us. Right? And I found that very interesting.